Alright, so this is going to be part 2 to what if Deku had the true Longinus. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the round fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Alright, so in the last part, I asked you guys to get 50 likes, and you guys got it. So this is going to be the video that I'm going to upload today, hopefully. And I'd also like to say that, I asked you guys in the last video whether or not you wanted more characters to have sacred gears, and I only got like 5 comments in total about it. But it seemed it was like 3 to it was a 2 to 3, with 2 people wanting characters to have sacred gear where the other 3 did not. So we're gonna keep it where, at least for now, with Deku being the only one who has a sacred gear. So in the last part, we just got done with the quirk assessment and the kind of entry exams. So in this one, we're actually going to do the heroes vs villains and then get into the USJ. So our story would, start off in the classroom, and this is when All Might would appear, coming through the door, just how he usually does, and he would say, "I am here as your combat instructor." And this is the point where he would introduce himself to the class, and everyone would be excited to have All Might as their teacher, since he is the #1 hero. So what would happen after this is that he would tell him, he would basically explain like, oh, write down your what you want for your hero suit, and after that he's actually gonna do the heroes vs villains test. So for Deku's costume, it's probably gonna be different, since he did get his own quirk, or at least that's what he thinks. So you guys can tell me how the kind of suit should look like and things like that. So we would cut back a little bit forward when they're choosing the teams, right? And it would still be the same, since there'd be no extra people in the class. And I don't think I mentioned this before, but for the quirk assessment kind of thing, I don't think anyone would be taken out of the class, just how it is in canon, right? So the same teams would be picked. It would be Ida and Bakugo versus Deku and Uraraka. So yeah, so Deku and Uraraka would look at the plans of the building, right, trying to see some entry points. So as they would walk in, this is when Bakugo would kind of rush him, just how he does in the anime, because he's very angry at Deku, thinking that he was hiding this away from him his entire life because he looked down on him, which is not the case. So in this one, Deku, he's a lot more confident since he has his own quirk, and his combat style is a lot different because he has a weapon. So he's actually able to keep Bakugo at a distance, since he could extend his true Longinus. And I got some ideas, or I got some comments about what the quirk should be called, and what I should say the name is for short. So I'm just gonna call it Holy Spear, and then the actual quirk name is actually gonna be called Holy Creation. So that's what these are from my comments people suggested. So yeah. So Deku would be able to keep him at a distance using the spear, and Bakugo, every time he would try to explode some using his explosions, right, to go into his face, right, it'd be really hard, since the true Longinus is actually able to shield its user from fatal attacks, right, to a certain point, right. So what Deku would do is that he'd do some basic energy blast using the spear, and then he would, I don't think I believe it was let me see, the wheel treasure, I don't think that would work on the gauntlets, because I don't think you could technically call them a weapon. They're more of a storage, but you guys can tell me down below if that should be considered a weapon or not. So, in this one, Deku would be a lot faster than Bakugo because he would have superhuman level of speed and strength, and the what's called the horse treasure would be able to teleport Deku wherever he wanted. So this fight would be pretty easy for him to win. He'd be able to knock out Bakugo by basically blitzing him and hitting him with the backside of the spear, since he doesn't want to kill him. So he'd be able to knock him out, and this is when they would put tape around him to get him out of the contest, or not contest, the test basically. And then Uraraka and Deku would go to the top level to try to find Ida, right? So in this fight, Ida has no real advantage in terms of speed or physical strength, because Deku it would be stronger than Ida, and he'd be faster due to the horse treasure. So since there is no real, Deku doesn't really go against any females in the series for a long time, he's not gonna be able to use the female treasure, so that would stop women's powers for a certain amount of time. So he's never really gonna be able to use that really until he meets a female villain, which is later on into the story. But yeah, but basically what would happen is that Deku would rush Ida, kind of using his spirit to extend and using kind of energy blade to kind of cut through his armor, right? And after that was done, he would basically use the back end of the spear and extend that to kind of push Ida and pin him against the wall. And this is when Uraraka would just touch the bomb and they would win. So after this was done, this is when All Might would do the kind of analysis over their fight, right? So he would basically explain to Bakugo and Ida that they needed more teamwork, and it was mostly the fault of Bakugo for rushing in, and he would congratulate Deku for or he would praise him for his teamwork that he did with Uraraka, with getting her, or him being the kind of distraction where she's able to get and go and touch the bomb, right? But he would also say you should have included her more, since Deku was doing most of the fighting. So Deku would take this criticism to heart, and people would see Deku as a very strong, capable fighter because of how he was able to use a spear. Because keep in mind, this one he would have learned how to use a spear in combat because of his his gear, right? His sacred gear. So Bakugo would still do that kind of thing where he tries to leave UA, but Deku would kind of stop him and tell him about how he barely got this quirk, and that he's trying to make it his own, right? Just how he does in the anime, but a little bit different. So I don't know who should get one for all on this. You guys can tell me down below. I've done one with Mirio. I've done one with Tamaki. I haven't done with I think her name was Nejire. But yeah. So we would cut later into the night, right? And this is when Deku would be home, and he would be kind of up studying, and this is when someone actually comes to his window, and this person has wings, but not just normal pairs of wings. He actually has 12 sets of wings, and they're black. And you might be asking, who is this character? And this character is Azazel, which is the leader of the fallen angels in High School DxD. So he would basically knock on Deku's window, and Deku would be confused and kind of scared, like, well, what is this guy doing here with like so many wings? Why is he here, right? And Azazel would like, look, let me in and I'll explain everything. So Deku would let him in, and this is when Azazel would basically explain that what Deku has is not what the humans call a quirk, but actually is a sacred gear and Longinus. I think there's a little bit of difference between a sacred gear and Longinus, because I think a Longinus has the power to rival gods, while a sacred gear just is the broad scope of those kind of weapons and things like that. So like the top stuff of sacred gears are called Longinus. I believe that's how it worked. But yeah, he would basically explain that what he has is called the true Longinus, and it's the most powerful one. And Deku's kind of reeled back, and he's kind of sad knowing that he doesn't have a quirk, but at the same time he's really, it's kind of bittersweet, because now he knows he has this really powerful weapon, right? So Azazel gives him a deal. He basically says, like, if you join me and become a fallen angel, then I will teach you how to use your sacred gear. And Deku's kind of like, he's really hesitant about doing this because it's a fallen angel, right? But then Azazel would explain about how they have the truce with the other two factions, being the devils and the angels. So the fallen angels don't really have the same system that the angels and devils have with the evil pieces and the I forgot what the angels like system is called, but I think it's called like Saint something. But basically they have like a deck of cards, while the devils have like chess pieces. So that there isn't really that for fallen angels. The only thing that they have is that the more sets of wings you have, the higher your rank is. So Deku would agree to this. And the reason why I'm picking fallen angels instead of like devils or angels is because I believe fallen angels give you the most independency, which would make it the best for this kind of what ifs that I do. So yeah. And also the fallen angels are the kind of most knowledgeable on sacred gears, because they have their own artificial sacred gears. So the way that Deku would become a fallen angel is that first he would become an angel, and then he'd be tempted into becoming a fallen angel. At least that's what I've read on the wiki. There isn't like a real good way of like turning someone into a fallen angel, but Azazel has said in the past that he would turn Issei and the rest of his group into fallen angels. So yeah, that's basically what would happen. He would turn him into fallen angel, and he would basically train Deku after that point. As a fallen angel, Deku would unlock some new powers, this being flight and light projection, and things like being able to use your feathers as like projectiles and being able to stab people through using them, just how you see in the anime. So yeah, he would, at this point, I think he would only have one pair of wings, because he is new, and later on he might have more. So yeah, so we would cut back the next day, and this is when Aizawa would basically tell the class that they're going to the USJ to do some rescue work, basically. So I forgot to tell you this, but in the last part I asked you guys like what type of balance breaker you guys want for the true Longinus, since we might not see it for a long time in the actual series. And a lot of people in my comment section wanted it to be some sort of suit, kind of long balance breaker, just how the divine dividing is, and also the boosted gear. So I did read some comments, and I really like this one comment that someone had, which was basically since the true Longinus is a spear that pierced Christ or Jesus, then the kind of suit that he wears should be that of a Roman soldier. So I really like that idea. But if you guys have anything else, if you don't like it, you guys can tell me. So for right now, we're gonna have that as the kind of balance breaker when that goes into effect later on. So yeah, they would have that kind of announcement from Aizawa, and after that they would go to lunch, and the media would still come through. But I think in this one, Deku would have an easier time to kind of, tell people what's happening, right? Because he could basically use his teleportation to get in front of everyone and basically tell them that it's only the media. And if I forgot to mention this, but the kind of class representative would probably still go to Deku, since it does in the anime, and people would be very willing, or they would have a lot of respect for him for winning that kind of test between the heroes versus villains. So yeah, he would get everyone's attention, tell the masses that it's only the media and it's nothing to be concerned about. So everyone would calm down. People would have more respect for Deku in this one because of how he kept his cool and was able to get everyone to calm down. So for his vice representative, it'd probably still be Momo, since it was like that in the anime. So we would cut back to the class, and this is when everyone's getting ready to go to the USJ. Deku would still bring his hero costume, since it wasn't destroyed like it was in the anime. And I think he would show people his wings, and he could just say that it's part of his quirk with the holy creation, because they're kind of angel wings, but they are black. So they would just see it as a mutation of his quirk. So yeah. And then so they would basically get everyone onto the bus, as normal. And this is when, on the way to the USJ, they would actually start having that conversation, just how they do in the anime, about those 3 strongest students in class 1A. They would be more interested in Deku, since his quirk is a little bit different than most, where he has a creation quirk, but only one specific thing, right? So Deku doesn't want to give off too much information, because Azazel would tell him not to do that, but he would also say that he's able to tell some things, because in this kind of world, people have powers, right? So he would basically say, like, if you can't explain it with your quirk, then don't say that, right? So Deku would basically say that, his quirk is called, holy creation, and he's able to make this spear and also wings, but he only found out about the wings pretty recently. So Deku would basically know about all the stuff that he could do with the spear, because Azazel would tell him, and the kind of powers that the Sacred Gears have don't really change per generation. They stay the same. It's just that different generations might be more powerful or more talented with those Sacred Gears than the last. So yeah, he would know each of the powers, right? So Deku wouldn't really tell the class about what each orb does. He would just say that he could create orbs that do certain things, right? And that his staff can extend and shrink and all that stuff, right? So Bakugo's getting really mad at this, thinking why would he hide this from me, right? He's very mad that Deku's getting so much attention, because in the past he was the one who's getting all that attention before, because of how strong his quirk was at the time. And Todoroki, he's kind of listening in, because he wants to be the number one, but at the same time he doesn't really care too much about gossip and things like that. So eventually Aizawa would tell the kids to quiet down and get start behaving, because they're about to get there. And when they get there, they open the doors, and this is when 13 would come out. 13 would still do that speech about, quirks and how they should be used. And Deku, he wouldn't be really affected by this at this point of the series because he's barely gotten his quirk, and it doesn't have that kind of the double-edged sword that the One for All had in canon. So they would try to do that tour of the kind of facility, but this is when a giant gate would open, and through that gate would be a bunch of villains. This would include the Nomu and Shigaraki. So Aizawa would basically tell 13 to take care of the kids while he goes down there and fights, and 13 would have the kids kind of run out of the USJ. But before they could do that, this is when Kurogiri would actually come and block their way, right? And in the process of doing this, he would actually teleport half the students away, just how he does in the anime. So Deku would still be teleported in the water, just like Froppy and Mineta, just how they do in the anime. They would get onto the boat, and the villains would surround them, right? But Deku isn't very scared about this since he has wings, right? So he'd basically grab onto Mineta and also Froppy and Suyu and basically fly out of there, and he would use his spear or true Longinus to basically shoot a very powerful energy blast into the water, creating the whirlpool that it does in the anime. And Mineta would use his sticky balls to kind of stick all the villains together, right? Just how it does in the anime. So he would get out of this situation faster than usual compared to the anime, and he would actually get to solid ground or the shore. And this is where he would find Aizawa versus Shigaraki and the Nomu, right? So as Shigaraki and the Nomu was actually teaming up against Aizawa, this is when Deku would basically extend the True Longinus and basically have them split. Like he would just cut in between using the spear as a kind of barrier, and this would give Aizawa enough time to back up and regroup with Deku. So in this, Deku would fight against the Nomu. Well, Aizawa would basically tell Deku to stand back and say that it's dangerous, but Deku would retort and say no, I got this, right? And this is when Shigaraki would be very kind of annoyed that this kid just got in the middle of it, and he would try to use his disintegration quirk on Deku, but he would block it with the True Longinus, and it wouldn't age. I don't think it would disintegrate, since it isn't like a normal weapon. So he'd be really confused by this. Shigaraki would be, and he would step back, and he would think that it was Aizawa who was stopping his quirk. So he would try this again, and again he would be blocked. So Deku would try to hit him with the Longinus, but this is when the Nomu would try to block it for Shigaraki. This would actually leave a cut in the Nomu, since it would be an energy blade. So I think that Deku would have no problem against the Nomu, because he would be using magic and not really physical force. So this is when, to get rid of the Nomu, because he would notice that he's a lot tougher than when he would normally fight, because even though it cut through the Nomu, this would still regenerate. He would still regenerate just how he does in the anime. And seeing that this creature has two quirks, this is when Aizawa would basically tell Deku I'll turn off his quirk for a bit, and you basically try to one-shot it. So Deku would use his general shot, or general treasure, to kind of basically disintegrate the Nomu, right? So I don't remember how the general shot looks like, or the general like treasure, really, or I don't. It's not really described too well on how it works. It just says that it's a very powerful attack, so I just assume that it's like a normal energy blast but more destructive. So they would have their plan ready, and this is when Aizawa would use his quirk to erase the Nomu's quirk, and this is when Deku would basically shoot the Nomu with his general treasure, basically erasing the Nomu. So, seeing that he's losing, Shigaraki would just tell Kurogiri to get him out of there. And as this is like done, this is when the pros would come and stop the attack, right? So I don't think in this one Shigaraki would get injured just like how he does in the anime, because I think Kurogiri would get him out in time, and the rest of the pro heroes would get rid of the rest of the villains that are still there. So I'll end it here, and you guys tell me what you think. And if you guys want people to have sacred gears, then tell me. But if not, I'll keep it the same how it is. And tell me what you think about Deku being a fallen angel in this. And I would really appreciate if you liked the video, because videos that get a lot of likes get more exposure and get more views, and just helps out the video so much. So I really appreciate that. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video.